Hey guys, Pete here again for the second half of the Mr. Robot Season 2 premiere. This video has been broken up into two parts because of the way that they leaked the first half a few days earlier, but in the future they'll both be, it won't be in two parts anymore. The reviews won't be broken up. It's actually, kind of good because there's a lot of stuff that happened and it was a long episode, so if you haven't seen the part 1 video, I'll put a link up at the top and so you can watch that one first. Second half of the episode picks up a little later in the day with CTO Scott Knowles rolling into the park with two giant duffel bags full of cash. He waits for a while for Fsociety to make contact until a bike messenger shows up. He asks him to sign and then gives him a backpack. Knowles gingerly looks inside to find a mask with a note telling him to put it on and burn the money. He actually does as he's told, and when I first watched it I was thinking it was pretty dumb to have him do this. But later when I thought about it, it was actually a pretty good plan. Let's not forget that E Corp is in a bad spot with its customers since they can't access any of their databases. For people to see this very public display of destroying close to $6 million in cash, it's actually $5.9 million for the 5.9 hack, but that's a pretty good picture to paint at the end of the day for Fsociety. It reinforces the disconnect between those at the top and the average person struggling in the wake of the hack. We see Darlene lurking in the crowd, and then we see, before we cut away to the next scene. Here we see CEO Philip Price in a meeting with 3 members of the Fed, as far as I can tell. They explain that they have, they put out as much money as they possibly could for E Corp and asked Price to resign. I have to say that, Michael Christopher, the actor who plays Price, is one of my favorites on the show. Instead of agreeing to step down, he turns things back around and gives a great speech about the nature of a con. He walks out letting them know that he better get what he wants, and it pretty much seems like he wants a government bailout.
If I resign, then any scrap of confidence the public is already clinging onto will be destroyed. And we all know a con doesn't work without the confidence.
We get a quick scene with Joanna Wellick tied to a bed getting roughed up by a character that we haven't seen before. He appears to be lukewarm in his enthusiasm for indulging her kink. In the next scene, another new character emerges in a bodega having a conversation with a cashier at a counter that is like totally Easter egg rich. Dom DePero is the name of the new FBI agent, and she's played by Meryl Streep's daughter, Grace Gummer, who you might know from the HBO series The Newsroom. She's pounding a 5-hour energy drink and buying more for the road, and surprises us by speaking to the Persian man behind the counter in his native tongue. While we don't have a lot of info here, it's a good setup for her character, and we get an idea that she isn't the typical square, federal agent type. Back in the field office, we see her deep in thought as she prepares to go sit down and interview Gideon. He looks completely terrified, but we don't get to hear any of the conversation. At the basketball court, we get an insight into what Elliot has on his mind.
When you look closely at the seams between order and chaos, do you see the same things I see? The strain, the tears, the glimpses of truth hidden underneath. Why do they fight so desperately to mask what they are? Or is it that they become who they are when they put on the mask? Sometimes I wonder what you hide behind, my silent friend. What mask do you wear? Or are you just as afraid as the rest of them? Me? Am I afraid? Nah, man. I'm different.
From there we get a standoff between Leon and one of the basketball players over the way that the player talks at him. Another character, Ray, steps in to break up the situation. He's a new character. As he sits down, Leon leaves and we notice another person behind him in the bleachers takes off as well. Ray knows who Elliot is, which seems suspicious, and when he brings up computers, Elliot quickly shuts him off. Mr. Robot chimes in telling him that he ought to hear him out, but Elliot decides not to engage. We go back to Joanna's room and catch a news opinion piece that features Tyrell. Her lover quickly changes the channel after watching a bit of it, and then we get an awkward exchange with the E Corp security detail coming in to help her out of the bathtub. We get reminded from the TV that not only does all the evidence in the 5.9 hack lead to Tyrell, but that he is also the top suspect in the Sharon Knowles murder. At E Corp, we overhear Angela's co-worker talking about how she doesn't like her and that the boss doesn't like her either. We see her sitting at her cubicle and she's got these bits of cheesy motivational decorations, which are kind of out of place. We see Angela in action negotiating on the phone with a TV news producer, and she seems actually really capable. She appears to be thriving in this new corporate role and gets to shut down the coworker and her boss by getting her way in the negotiation. I'm not really a big fan of the new Angela in theory, but I give her some bonus points for listening to Sonic Youth while waiting for the callback. Angela's storyline is difficult to sort out. We have an exchange at a bar with the lead attorney in the lawsuit against her new employer. She refuses to leave the job. The lawyer tells her a story that basically boils down to Angela becoming a corporate whore, and it's kind of a funny story, but it's also a pretty good dialogue of where she's gone since last season. We then see this guy that she doesn't know sit down next to her. He asks her if she's alone, and then we cut right to a scene of them in bed in her apartment where it looks like they just had sex. While he's sleeping, she slips away and turns on a sort of positive affirmations or cognitive behavioral kind of self-help video. This, I guess, is the way, to see where she's at. She's trying to believe that she can move into a role similar to that of Philip Price, and one that commands just a lot of power. In between the two Angela scenes, we got a shot of Joanna at home discovering a package left on her doorstep. When she takes it inside and opens it, she finds a music box with a cell phone taped to the bottom. We can only imagine that Tyrell sent the gift and that the phone is from him. Back at the basketball court, Leon is absent, but Ray and his dog Maxine stop by. Elliot tries to politely ask him to leave, which confuses him. It turns out Mr. Robot met up with him the night before, and Elliot doesn't have any memory of it. I really like the bit that he says about the fake laugh, and it points out what are these two doing together? I mean, like, it's kind of a weird combo, and Elliot obviously freaks out that he didn't remember meeting him, and he goes home, and we get this awesome exchange.
Last night to this morning, while I was sleeping, I can't account for it. A gap in my consciousness, and somehow
What do they see when they see you coming?
And this is why I'm different. Sometimes my mask takes over.
Why did you talk to him? Because I'm gonna make you realize.
What? What will you make me realize?
That they see me.
For me, this is really what makes this show better than most. The internal conflict of who we are and who we try to show others. The fact that Elliot's mask takes over and how he fights to reconcile those two sides is the underlying current in this season. In season 1, he was in this battle with his loneliness, and that led to Mr. Robot coming into the picture and ultimately the events of the 5-9 hack. In the midst of all the fallout and consequences of that, he can't really even move beyond his own mind. The scene in his bedroom ends with this, which you just have to watch again because there's really no words. Like, they're just...
I'm late for my church group. Peace.
So Elliot wins for now, and Mr. Robot is left to reevaluate. After that, we get the real twist of this half of the episode that I don't think really anyone saw coming. Gideon is approached at a bar where he is having a drink by this mysterious character who seems to know a lot about him. The guy seems personal, but there's an undercurrent of a sort of creepy conspiracy theorist. He tells Gideon that he knows who he is, and he thinks he is probably just a patsy. He uses an interesting choice of language when he calls Gideon a crisis actor, and he says he's the perfect vessel for their lies. He's calm and creepy, and in the end thanks Gideon before shooting him and saying it was done for our country. We see Gideon on the floor dead or dying, and I can't help but think that this is a positive for Elliot in the sense that it takes off the heat. I mean, he was a threat, but at the same time, it cuts off any chance or any real hope for him to redeem himself by making things right. I mean, if you remember the first season, you know, he mentions he hacked Gideon and found nothing. He said he found that Gideon was a good man, and he doesn't say that about anyone else. And here we go, Gideon is now gone, and that's that. We see Joanna at home again looking at the music box. She has a baby monitor and the Tyrell phone on the counter in front of her. She hears the baby cry, so she gets up, and it turns out to be the exact right time to miss a call. It's an unknown number. There's no way for her to call back, and you know, it just is what it is. The closing scene is Elliot at his church group nodding off while it sounds like they're reading something from the Book of Revelations. He's likely tired from staying up the night before doing Mr. Robot stuff, and this is all underscored by the, you know, what they're saying. They're talking about the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and end, or the Father and the Son. And, you know, it ties together in a pretty overt way. As he drifts off, we go back to his mom's house and we see him on the phone. Once he hears it stop ringing, he says hello, and eventually we hear Tyrell's voice say, "Bonsoir, Elliot."
Hello?
Is it really you?
Who is this?
Bonsoir, Elliot.
There's almost too much stuff to talk about in this two-part episode. There are a ton of Easter eggs and hidden content. They went over a bunch of them on the after show last night. I'm not sure if you scanned the QR code, but there are a few versions of that. Different fans have uploaded. You can find online. The title from his little composition book, his notebook, is The Red Wheelbarrow. So I don't know if you looked up that or not, but it leads to this poem, and this is it in its entirety. So that's a little interesting. I think it was a solid way to start the season, and even though it posed more questions than it answered, I think it did a pretty good job of moving the storyline along at the same time. Elliot's story and personal struggle really overshadows the rest of the characters for me, but you know, there's a web in place, and it should be pretty interesting to see it all unravel. I'm wondering if there are 10 more episodes left or 11. I know they extended it to 12 this season, but I'm not sure if part 1 and 2 count individually or as one. You know what I mean? I'm not sure how the total of those work. There's still a couple big cliffhangers from the first season we haven't seen anything about yet. Most notably would be the knock at Elliot's door at the end of season 1, and then that little meeting between CEO Price and White Rose in disguise in that post-credit scene. So there's like a lot of stuff to think about and a lot of cool theories popping up as well. One thing that is picking up a following on Reddit is this idea that Elliot is actually in prison or an institution. So say that, you know, that knock on the door was the police and they came and locked him up. I personally don't think this is the case, because I think that it works kind of how it is. Like he's imprisoned in his own mind, you know. The things in his surroundings do reflect like a prison routine, and I can see how people are drawing the parallel. But I think it's largely a result of his perspective. You know, he's cut off from everyone, and he hasn't been online, which is something that he was always doing. And at the same time, he can't trust himself or his decision making beyond the scope of this routine he set up for himself. So it could be true, you know, that would be an awesome twist. But I don't know. Let me know what you think about that, and let me know if you have any other ideas or theories in the comments. I definitely like reading them, and I'll try to respond as best I can. Please like the video and subscribe. I'll be doing episode reviews at least throughout the season, and possibly like some trailer breakdowns or Q&As if there's lots of questions and I have time. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.